Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Vegas Golden Knights. Final score 3-2. So the Rangers 6-game road winning streak comes to an end. And look, it's what we've seen a lot this season from the Rangers, which is just not a whole lot of offensive punch. Back-to-back games with 19 shots on goal. And really the special teams has been a problem. We've spoken about the power play at length and how that has been an issue, but now the penalty kill is really been struggling lately, allowing in this game 2 power play goals on only 2 opportunities for Vegas. And so, as much as I think the bigger issue is the lack of goal scoring or really just lack of real good opportunities and chances, can't ignore how the penalty kill, it's dropped to 24th in the NHL. I've kind of sung the praises of the penalty kill, and it was a lot better earlier in the season and even in recent years, even last year when there were struggles, the amount of shorthanded goals the Rangers were able to get this year, just not really quite the same. It's kind of weird how, believe it or not, the power play, just in terms of league rank, the power play is tied for 20th, which is nothing to write home about. And again, tied for 23rd is the penalty kill, 77.6%. So that was not good. And again, it's the top 6 that by and large is really where this team falls short. It just is, right? Not to say that the bottom 6 is something amazing, but it's done the job. It's done what it's needed to do. And even in this game, the bottom 6 produces the only non-6-on-5 goal. Ironically, the Rangers do score a 6-on-5 goal, which I've talked about as well. But of course, they do it down by 2, which they have done. Like last year, I spoke about how no goals in 6-on-5 situations to tie a game. That remains true. There were, of course, times where they were down by 2 to cut it to 1. So the actual stat is tying goals with under 3 minutes to go in the game in the third period. The last time the Rangers have done that is March 2nd, 2024 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where Vincent Trocheck scored a goal with around a minute or so to go. They lost the game. That's not the point. They ended up losing the game in the shootout, but they had 3 occurrences of a game tying goal with under 3 minutes in the third in 2023, Gallant's second and final season as Ranger head coach, and then Laviolette's first as head coach of the Rangers, the President's Trophy year, 3 times there as well. So the fact that they've done it 6 times only from the beginning of the 22-23 season, that's got to be among the lowest in the NHL. Then, of course, driving the point home further is from the start of last year, 0 times. Again, not going to make a big deal about it in this episode for the fact they actually did score a 6-on-5 goal, but it's an extension of the power play problems, and just the top players not producing. So, let's talk roster and good news. Mike Sullivan back behind the bench. So hoping that everything's all right with him and his family. He obviously missed the game before, the home Detroit Red Wing game, but he was able to join the team, and so he is back behind the bench. As far as the defensemen go, Will Borgen returns, which is a welcome sight for the Rangers. He pretty much played his normal allotment of ice time, maybe a little bit less than he normally would, but I think also the fact the Rangers were trailing probably plays a little into that. Played just shy of 17 minutes, so pretty much back, and really didn't look much worse for wear from what I could tell. Clearly, he's been dealing with something. I think maybe it even goes back to earlier in the season. So he misses 2 games. Scott Morrow was a healthy scratch. And for Morrow, I wonder if this means if he goes back down to Hartford. I think it depends on maybe their schedule, where, maybe he makes the trip to Colorado, and it's insurance for Borgen. I think maybe if, he does have a setback, but Scott Moore, I think probably sooner than later goes down to the AHL. He played that 1 game, didn't play much, about less than 10 minutes against the Red Wings. And then as far as the Robertson versus Vakanainen thing, it's Matthew Robertson again, back-to-back games of Robertson. So Vakanainen a healthy scratch again. And I think the Robertsons looked a little bit better. He took a seat, I think deservedly so, and he's looked a little bit sharper since then. So he, of course, paired up on the third pair with Braden Schneider, and they go back to Soucy with Borgen on the second pair. And then as far as the forwards go, one change there too, as far as in and out, and that is Juuso Parssinen replacing Adam Edstrom. Adam Edstrom has not really been great lately. And so I think it's deserved. I think everything being equal, I think that the coaching staff does prefer Edstrom over Parssinen. Parssinen really hasn't been bad. It's just like he played less than 7 minutes in this game. Like his ice time is typically among the least of the forwards when he's in there. And maybe part of it is if a center spot opens up, then I think maybe Parssinen would have more of a role. I guess, when you look at it from a wing perspective, maybe Edstrom is the preferred option. But again, Edstrom has not really been good. He has not been the player that he was last season before he got hurt, where we saw that Edstrom, Carrick, Rempe line really be successful. So Parssinen in. And then as far as the lines go, we did see a change mid-game. And it wasn't so much an indictment on Cooley. He's part of it. But I think it was more of a way to just bring a little bit of energy and speed to that Zibanejad, JT Miller line. So Johnny Brodzinski moves up, and Brodzinski, it's ironic that Brodzinski scores a goal with Cooley on the ice at the same time. It was during a line change. So that ends up happening. But Brodzinski's been playing pretty well. Really, the best line, and it's a low bar, but the Noah Laba line with Sherry, who plays with a lot of speed and energy. He just has no offensive skill at all. It's really, him in a top 9 role is extremely unideal. Really, at most, he should be getting fourth line minutes, but it's not for a lack of try for him. I mean, look, there's effort, but that was the best line. Sherry, Laba, and Brodzinski. And they mix it up in order to get, again, Zibanejad and Miller, and more so JT Miller going. I haven't brought up JT Miller yet, but his struggles continue. Continues to be one of the most disappointing players on the ice. I've said it from the beginning, and the stats are horrible as well. I mean, JT Miller, now he does get an assist. He does get a secondary assist on the 6-on-5 goal. But 21 games played, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points. I mean, it's not going to get it done any way you look at it. And there's a lack of overall hustle at times as well. He says all the right things for the most part post-game, but yet it feels a lot. And again, this is not an equal situation, but it's almost like a Chris Kreider thing from last year where I felt like Kreider was a bit checked out. And there was, of course, potential injury concerns, which I think were valid. With Miller, the same thing. Obviously, he got hurt in training camp. There's a little bit of that backdrop where it's like, all right. And I hope he's hurt. Because if he's not hurt, then there's really, really serious problems here when it comes to JT Miller. But there's just not any, like he's kind of going through the motions at times. It's a bit of, look, speed was never a thing for JT Miller. He was never slow, but it wasn't as if speed was part of his game. It was more of a power game, a physicality, skill, tons of skill, great passer, good shooter as well, as he's, kind of left the Rangers and gone to Tampa, and then, of course, Vancouver, where he really took off. But he, for me, is kind of the poster child for the struggles. And that it's a moving target for sure, right? Because I think it's most of the top 6 that have not done well. I think Zibanejad's done a decent job, and I think part of that is due to lowered expectation. But he's done all right, relatively speaking. But look, Panarin's had his really great games, but Artemi Panarin in this Vegas game was really, really held down. And that's playoff Panarin, and that's versus a really, really solid, sound, defensively structured team. Panarin's just not going to be able to do what he does. Like, if he doesn't have that open ice, if if the middle of the ice is clogged up, he'll just defer, to taking it to the perimeter, and it's just going to lead to east-west, and it's going to get shut down. So, look, that Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line, for me, give it a go for a little bit longer, but I'm very much okay with Miller and Zibanejad, not quite, because that was a duo that actually was solid last year. I felt like it got Zibanejad going a bit. It's not really having that same effect now, so I'm totally fine with mixing up the lines, whether within the top 6 or the top 9, to be honest. But yeah, it's really frustrating to watch. This Ranger team is not really talented. It's got to be one of the least talented teams in the league. They're going to have to win, and it's so against the DNA of this core, but they're going to have to win, playing a grinded out defensive low event style, which kind of clashes with what this team has been. And I just, they've done look on the road, especially, they've done a good job. Despite this loss, dropping to 9-2-1 on the road. Now, overall record 10-9-2 on the season. But yeah, it's just, it's hard to feel great about this team. I think they're going to hang in there. I think that they're going to, it's going to be like this, where you win some, you lose some, and they'll be hanging around. But look, at the very most, this is a team that, snatches one of the final playoff spots. That's the ceiling of this team. There are no way a real cup contender, which I think all fans are aware of. But, there's a better chance that things bottom out completely than they do the Rangers somehow find their way. That's just how I feel. But it's just not an overly impressive roster when you look at it. So let's discuss the play-by-play of this game. And it was Igor Shesterkin in net. And it's a game where Igor, there's another goal allowed that shouldn't have been. Made a lot of good saves as well. Igor kept the Rangers in this game. It wasn't as if he was overly tested, but he really did make some very good saves, especially in the third period, to really keep things, intact for the Rangers. But yeah, it's been a tick off for him for sure. Where he got up to a great start lately, just, again, there's about a goal a game, it feels like, where despite everything else, it's one that he want to have back with mistakes around him as well. And look, Igor is the least of the problems, just, calling it as I see it. Where look, like Jonathan Quick, has actually provided more consistency. I mean, push comes to shove, it's going to be Igor, and it should be every time. But, I think that he, probably would admit that his play could be a little bit better too. But look, it's a low event first 10 minutes of this game. And ultimately, it's just a bad penalty by Artemi Panarin at 11:14. He trips Mitch Marner. It's a situation where this Ranger team, of course, has trouble scoring goals. That's clearly evident. Really, to me, it's been worse at home, but it hasn't really been very good on the road either. And he just needlessly flails the stick out in the neutral zone against the flow of play and takes down Mitch Marner. That can't happen if you're Artemi Panarin. That just can't. That's a bad penalty. The Rangers really weren't doing much. It was Vegas had the better of the chances, but it wasn't a whole lot. And you just got to stay patient. And Panarin, again, just sort of recklessly just flails his stick and I guess trying for the poke check, and he trips Mitch Marner. Leads to a Vegas power play, and very quickly, because a lot of the power play goals Rangers have allowed typically come at the end of the 2-minute kill. This one was quick. 26 seconds into the power play, Braden Bowman scores the second goal of the season from Hertl and Marner. And it's Trocheck loses the faceoff, and the Ranger penalty killers are being way too passive. They need to be aggressive, and I know that there's risk that comes with that, but they're just sitting back and they're letting, the opposition just cave them in, and that makes it easy. And it's a shot by Marner from up top that is, I think, maybe deflected by Hertl in front to just, it's a rebound that just goes to a wide open Bowman who buries it and gives the Golden Knights a 1-0 lead. And just not a great period by the Rangers. They're outshot 8-5. Now look, like the shot counts for the Rangers in each period. 5, 6, and then 8. I mean, so it's not as if they were a whole lot better than the periods, but the first was not very good in particular. So 1-0 Vegas, end of 1. We go to the second period, And this is the one even strength Vegas goal allowed. And there was just a lot of bad shit on this goal all the way around. It's a goal by Ben Hutton, his first goal of the season from Dorofeev and Hurdle at 323. And it's one where, Miller and Zibanejad are kind of struggling on the boards, getting it out. Zibanejad's unable to do it, but just the optics of JT Miller just really not moving at all. And again, I watch him a lot away from the puck, and it's just, there's a lack of really energy and movement, just standing still. And again, blame goes, in a few different directions of really not winning a battle. It was a 50-50 battle, where, Zibanejad is along the boards, kind of gets double teamed by Hurdle and Dorofeev. Miller, again, doesn't really help much. And it goes to an open Ben Hutton, who takes an innocent shot, and it trickles in past Shesterkin. That can't go in, despite all the other, defensive play there. Shesterkin needs to save that 100%. So that makes it 2-0 Vegas. Soon thereafter is where you get the swap of Cooley and Brodzinski. And again, it's one of those weird things where they end up being on together through a line change. I think Brodzinski was the one that was still out there, and Cooley was coming on with Laba. But Carson Soucy makes a nice defensive play at the blue line, at the Rangers blue line, leading to a 2-on-1. It's Barbashev that turns it over. It's a 2-on-1. Will Cooley just takes the shot against Akira Schmid, the former New Jersey Devil goalie, who just really has the Rangers number. Didn't do much as a Devil besides that 2023 playoffs that he really helped turn around, a really bad 7-game series lost by the Rangers to the Devils, where they basically were looking like they were in control of the series, up 2-0 going to game 3. Akira Schmid comes into the net, does a good job. Hasn't done a whole lot since, but he's been very good for Vegas lately. Anyway, Cooley takes that shot. It's a rebound, and Brodzinski is able to stuff it in to cut it to 2-1. It's Brodzinski's second goal of the season, assisted by Cooley at 8:56. It's now 2-1. And again, you are getting some production, not maybe a lot, from bottom six type players. So 2-1 at that point. And then the Rangers have their one power play opportunity. Caden Korczak trips Lafreniere at 12:36. But the Ranger power play doesn't do anything. And again, it's only one chance. When you only have one opportunity, it's not going to lead to a whole lot of goals. But they were down by 1 at that point. Chance to maybe turn momentum around. It just doesn't happen. And Trocheck was on the number 1 power play unit over Cooley. So Cooley, for him individually, tough. You lose that spot on the Zibanejad line. Although, again, I don't think it was an indictment of him. And same thing with the power play. I think it was a different look, getting Trocheck, who's a right-handed bumper option. Look, for me, I would have been totally fine with putting Trocheck on and then leaving Cooley and taking JT Miller off as the net front presence guy. I think Cooley's a better net front guy than Miller. I digress, because they're not going to really change that realistically. And the Rangers don't score on that power play. So we go to the third period with Vegas up 2-1. And, the Rangers in the third period to start, it's just not good enough. I mean, the Rangers' third periods have not typically really been up to snuff, regardless of the situation. And I guess I'm mostly talking about when they're in trail mode. It's just, you're not getting enough high-quality chances until, the very end, in this case. But at 5:35, Carson Soucy interferes with Cole Reinhardt. Again, Carson Soucy's lack of foot speed hurts him. We saw it against Detroit, where Lucas Raymond was able to get that game-winning goal, in part because Soucy just doesn't have that speed. It's been a pretty solid season for Soucy, certainly much better than last season when the Rangers acquired him from the Vancouver Canucks. But here we go now. Ranger penalty kill has been struggling, and it continues to do so. And in the beginning of the power play, Shesterkin made a bunch of unbelievable saves. Jack Eichel had an unbelievable chance. Shesterkin is able to sprawl and make the stop acrobatically. It was pretty impressive. And soon thereafter, it leads to a 2-on-1 opportunity. Will Cooley again on it, this time with Vincent Trocheck. If I'm Will Cooley, I would have done the same thing as the time before. Take a shot and see what happens. Either maybe you score, maybe you get a rebound. But he passes to Vincent Trocheck. Now, give Trocheck credit, who was in kind of a tough angle. He's able to get it back to Cooley for a good chance. They got a good chance out of it. I just think I wish Cooley wouldn't have gone the pass route to Trocheck. Cooley's not able to lift the puck. Schmid makes the save. And then eventually, Vegas does get the power play goal. Shea Theodore, his second goal of the season from Hannafin and Sissons, the former Predator, at 7:18. So, yeah, it's just, there was a little bit of contact, but, from Sissons to Igor, but it wasn't worth challenging. If it was any more, given the score, given the fact it made it a 3-1 game, I would have, but they weren't going to overturn it. I'm not sure if Igor saw it. There was traffic in front. Theodore takes the shot. It goes in. So Vegas 2 for 2 on the power play. 3-1 Golden Knights. Then you have a situation with a little over 7 minutes where there's a disallowed goal correctly called where it's an offside, where JT Miller, again, it's the Miller, and to a lesser extent Zibanejad, but I'm going to put it a little more on Miller, where he's taking the puck into the zone, delays for just a split second, and so Zibanejad can't stay onside. And therefore, they, of course, score. I think it would have been Brodzinski's goal. Not totally sure, but it was clearly offside. It was a quick review, correctly called. And again, just it's a lack of timing. There's so many things when it comes to JT Miller's game that just is not up to par. And then the Rangers, they pull the goalie. And with under 3 minutes left, 17-17 to be exact in the third, Vincent Trocheck scores his third goal of the season from Panarin and JT Miller. It's a shot by Panarin, and it's deflected, tipped in by Trocheck in front. Cooley was in front as well. Again, 6-on-5 scenario where the Rangers do score. We don't see it often, but when it does happen, it's typically making it going from a 2-goal deficit to a 1-goal deficit. So 3-2 there on the Trocheck goal. Then probably a minute or so after that, you get a situation where where the puck does go into the Vegas net, but illegally, like Cooley kind of just, shoves, with his stick, Akira Schmid into the net. So, they gave it a quick look, but no goal. And then with under a minute left, Rangers do get some actual ozone time. And the problem is they set up that Mika Zibanejad one-timer from the side. There's just no angle on it. It's just, I would let it roll through. I mean, Fox needs to be able to take a wrist shot. Again, we know he doesn't have much of a slap shot. Take those wrist shots and just try to get it through. Hope for deflections. You got to get a greasy goal. You have to. The Zibanejad one-timer, it's just not effective, and the angle is off. And the part of it is because that is what's most available. That is what the other team is giving them, and it's just not going to work. I mean, rarely it will. So, it wasn't for lack of some opportunity, but the Rangers fall short. Final score 3-2 Vegas Golden Knights over the New York Rangers. And it does get any easier. Rangers will now go to Colorado to take on the Avalanche. They are unequivocally the best team in the NHL. Really, any way you want to look at it. They're 13-1-5 overall. They are currently on a 6-game winning streak, 8-0-2 in their last 10, 7-0-2 at home, a plus 31 goal differential. Now, the Rangers have had some success in Colorado recently. I don't think that means much, but just figure I'd throw that out there. They have won their fair share of games, but those were better Ranger teams than this one currently. But yeah, they're going to have to really, really commit to playing great defense and just, try to stay in a close game. And you can't make the little mistakes they did in the Vegas game and expect to beat Colorado. They have to play a near perfect game to beat them. And then they go to Utah. So, an up-and-coming Utah Mammoth team, although they really have had their struggles lately, but they're very, very good at home. Utah's 5-1-1 at home, so the Rangers have their work cut out for them. And this thing could spiral a little bit. The Rangers have to kind of keep it here. It's a 2-game losing streak. The Rangers generally have been all right, last 10 games or so. They've been okay. Nothing's really changed, but it's where those losses at home hurt a lot because you expect to lose at Vegas. You kind of expect to lose at Colorado. It's where you can't get those bad losses earlier on where they just really even simply weren't competitive in a lot of them too. So, yeah, Ranger road trip continues, and it starts with a 3-2 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. The Rangers' offensive woes continue. And the penalty kill is now really, really struggling, allowing 2 power play goals to the Vegas Golden Knights on their only 2 opportunities. And now the Rangers will head to Colorado to take on the NHL best Avalanche.